Hello, my name is Jason Lazarus, CEO of Synergy. With me is Rasa Fumagalli, Synergy's Director of MSP Compliance. Rasa has deep experience in MSP compliance related issues, and she has an incredible passion for working with law firms and when it comes to these issues. So since there are so many potential pitfalls and complexities when it comes to the MSP, Rasa, what should law firms think about in terms of those pitfalls, and what are the best practices to avoid those pitfalls?
Thank you, Jason, for the introduction. And I know we're kind of limited in terms of time frame because I could go on and on about this, but the potential pitfalls that we've got here, first off, are that if you do not address conditional payments, or you don't have a handle on what is a final conditional payment letter versus an interim conditional payment letter, number one, you could completely derail your settlement. Your client might end up with conditional payments that are far greater than he or she ever anticipated. If you don't address those conditional payments and you just blow them off, you can have the Department of Treasury coming after your law firm and your client seeking double damages. Not only would that be, obviously problematic from a malpractice standpoint, but it would also ruin the firm's reputation. And it might result in your client having their Social Security disability benefits offset by this conditional payment amount. So that is a big potential pitfall. You also might have problems if you fail to look into the Medicare Advantage plans. You might get a zero letter from Medicare saying no conditional payments, but that is only addressing Part A and Part B. If you don't consider Medicare Part C, Medicare Part D plans, these plans have the same recovery rights. So that's another potential pitfall. Another potential pitfall is that Medicare is going to know that there's a settlement with a Medicare beneficiary because of mandatory insurer reporting. And because of this, if your client, the injured party, continues to receive injury-related treatment after that case is settled, there's a possibility that they might get a letter from Medicare saying, we're not the primary payer. The liability settlement is the primary payer. So that obviously is going to terrify your client unless there's a discussion with them about this upfront. It might also result in issues with the client wondering about the representation that they've gotten because they were unaware of this. So, it's important to think about Medicare secondary payer compliance. If you don't understand it, you might agree to some very inappropriate Medicare secondary payer compliance settlement terms that the defense is putting in there. There might be a requirement that you submit a liability Medicare set aside to CMS for review. That's not an option, but we have seen this crazy language and contracts. So those are pitfalls. Jason, are you ready for the best practices then?
Yeah, let's hit it.
All right. First thing, you've got to talk to your clients about the potential impact of the Medicare Secondary Payer Act. But before you do that, you should have a system in place where you can figure out what group of my clients does this actually pertain to. So we would recommend that you set up a protocol where you identify who is on Medicare when you sign your client up. You should also update this because cases do tend to linger for, several months, some situations, years. A person's Medicare status might change, whether it's because they hit 65 or because they've been awarded Social Security disability benefits. So you can have people on Medicare who are much younger than 65 because they're getting Social Security disability. Another thing to consider is that when you've identified this group of injured party, your clients who do have a potential problem with Medicare, is to make sure that you talk to them about the potential implications of the Medicare Secondary Payer Act, that you have to address conditional payments, that you have somebody either in-house that is trained and knows how to deal with conditional payment searches, with Medicare Part C, Part D, lien searches, and so forth, and they know what to do. If you don't have this set up within your firm, well, then you must consult with an outside group that can help you with this. So that is something that's best practices would call for. Another thing is you want to make sure that your client is advised of the potential impact of that Medicare Secondary Payer Act, especially if they're likely to receive ongoing injury-related treatment. And most importantly, you've got to document your file so that if there ever was an issue down the road post-settlement, you can show through the documentation that you did consider Medicare's interest at time of settlement. So, CAD, consult, advise, document. Those are the three keys that you've got to consider.
If your firm wants to try and avoid these pitfalls, as well as make sure you're implementing best practices, that's where partnering with Synergy for MSP compliance becomes critical to protecting your clients and your law firm.